this city, and we built the Nongping cable car system, but we must not have done a very good job because we keep having these glitches, and the government has ordered a full inspection of the cable car. You know, hundreds of passengers were suspended up there for quite a long period of time, a couple of hours. They weren't very happy about it. I'm sure some tourists would say, I'm not going back to Hong Kong. And apparently the government's not too happy because we see here quoted in the paper Commerce Secretary Greg So criticizing the Nongping 360 company, which operates this attraction, saying at least you should have let people know there was a lack of communication. You should have well-informed people suspended there that this was a minor glitch. It was being checked out, and it could be resolved fairly quickly. So we're joined now by Paul Jie, legislator representing the Tourism Functional Constituency. Paul, very good morning to you.
Oh, good morning, Brian.
Yeah, what are you hearing from people? You know, I guess the tourism industry would suffer a bit from this.
Well, yes, I guess we as you saw in the news, you know, the very angry visitors say they'll never come back to Hong Kong again just because of that. I mean, that's very sad, but I think that's something that people might say, you know, after what happened, like what you described just then.
And yet mistakes happen. You know, you have times when you're on an elevator and there's a problem. You know, it's not the end of the world. You kind of get through it. Same thing sometimes. There's delays with the MTR. Do you think most people would take this in stride, or was this an egregious example of a problem and, you know, you were left hanging without any proper information?
Well, like you said, I mean, telling them what's happening and telling them what's going to happen is very important. And I think in this case, what really made the things worse is there had been no announcements whatsoever, either during or afterwards. I mean, what maybe I should even say that beforehand. I think every time when there's a major public season, a holiday season, one would have thought that the Nongping cable car system, they should really have done something beforehand, you know, as opposed to now they're suspending it and say they only check up for the next 10 days and things like that. And during what's happening, of course, like you said, there should have been live announcements. There should have been, better warning systems, both at the MTR stations and on situ, to make sure that these stranded passengers would know what's happening. And there should have been more support to them in terms of providing, you know, warm blankets, hot drinks, or what have you afterwards. I mean, what about an apology right away? What about talk about compensation? Not just returning their unused tickets, but also trying to make sure that those stranded passengers will be brought back to to where they were by shuttle buses or what have you. And all these were not happening, and that's why people are so angry about it.
Well, it's not quite fair. I mean, you watched TV pictures, right? You saw that the Nongping 360 staff, they're standing by the cable cars as these passengers came off. There were ambulances on standby, and they went. I mean, the passengers are too angry to talk to the staff, but they're trying to go up to the passengers and clearly saying, "Well, get a refund, and we're sorry, and leave your name, right?" Okay, and then they had ambulances on standby. So I mean, they were trying to. I mean, they were off. It's sort of fixing it after the stable after the horses bolted, aren't they? But they were trying to make amends at the time, weren't they?
No, not what we saw on TV reports. I wasn't there myself, of course. I didn't know what happened really, but based on what the passengers said, and based on the reactions of what we saw on the screen, I mean, you're quite right. I mean, there were people standing by, but at the same time, we didn't see any warm reception. We didn't see any offering of blankets and drinks and what have you, and it's just passengers, you know, very angry and that sort of thing. And I would have thought one could do better than just that.
I would have thought that just getting a refund of the ticket, it was almost like a slap in the face.
I know.
You know, that's such an imposition that you'd have thought that they would have handed out, vouchers or something worth a lot more.
Well, for another trip on the cable car, perhaps.
Maybe a few nights in a hotel or something.
In Lantau Island, I mean, those were left stand there for hours.
Well, but again, I mean, that's, they were ferrying them back by bus, weren't they? But we know ourselves, right? That is a very small road coming back from Nongping, right? Okay, right. There's a limit to, and they're reliant on the new Lantau bus company to provide the buses.
But why should at least try offering? I mean, saying that we're going to hire some buses, we're going to do whatever. Just tell them,
Yeah.
Do something.
Why, more broadly, why can't we get the cable car right? Okay, I mean this is now run by the MTR. The reason why it's run by the MTR, right, is basically because the government pushed out the first operators because they couldn't get it right either. And the idea was you bring in the MTR, they run pretty good train service in Hong Kong, they'll run the cable car better. But it doesn't seem to have happened at all. I don't know if it's that too much of the old management has stayed behind from the previous company, but it just does seem to be a disaster. Whoever runs it.
Right. Well, perhaps one of the reasons is this is a bit tricky. The non-ping cable car is perhaps one of the longest in the world, and one of the most exposed in the world, in the sense that normally when you have cable cars, you run very much along slope of mountains or hills where you have more shelter or you have more, backup protection. But here we have a very long sort of stretch of cable carway, which goes across the entire harbor or whatever you. And if the weather is bad, especially if it's very windy, it might cause a lot of trouble, you see. So maybe that's something that we have to look into.
The project was too ambitious in the first place, basically.
And maybe so, yeah. Maybe we should have more stops in between. But there you are. I mean, that's one thing that worries me too, is whether there's any design problem really, and whether there's any systemic problem with it. It's not a question of just periodic operational breakdown, but it's something to do with the design itself. That's something more long-standing.
I wonder whether or not they're overly careful. If this was a worn bearing, perhaps suspending it, freezing it for such a long period of time wasn't necessary.
Being too careful. I mean, obviously, off safety.
Well, we can't have it both ways, can we?
Especially after they've had a cable car falling down, right? Although that was only on testing,
Right.
Perhaps we have to live with, because it is exposed, as you say, and we do get rather severe weather conditions here with the heavy rains in the summer and the heat and all that. Maybe, this is the price we have to pay. Slightly overly careful, maybe one bearing a reading that it was slightly worn, and they basically suspend it until it can be checked out. Perhaps that's just the price you have to pay.
Well, how about even more careful in the sense that when there's very, very bad weather, we'll just suspend it in the first place.
Well, that happens all the time.
Yeah.
In the fog and bad weather, they do suspend it. Mm-hmm. But I think actually the Commerce Secretary's basic complaint was not so much on operational difficulty as it was on communications difficulty. They should have better informed passengers what was happening.
Right.
So is it understood that they actually do have the ability to communicate in all the cabins on all of the cars at all times?
Well, they would. I mean, they should.
Then it raises the question why they didn't.
It's a question of whether they just broadcast pre-recorded messages or whether one goes on the microphone and says something about it. And in fact, talking about complaint, I would even go further. I would say mind you, it's quite right for Greg Stowe to say all these one day afterwards. But what about at the time? I mean, during the very high tourism seasons, obviously one will have somebody from the Tourism Commission to stand by just in case of emergencies. One would have thought if there's somebody there sort of helping out or directing what must be done or what should be done, one would find situations much better.
I'm not sure, I'm not clear. What would how can someone from the Tourism Commission help here?
Well, every now and then we do have package tours stranded somewhere, not having hotel rooms and what have you, especially during Chinese New Year's, Christmas holidays and things like that. And one would have thought if there is somebody sort of monitoring any emergency situations at the Tourism Commission, instead of simply doing something 24 hours afterwards, that might even be better in the sense of coordinating tourism management and providing better services for Hong Kong's tourists.
This lack of communication is very strange because, I mean, the non-ping 360 is run by the MTR, and the MTR is not perfect, but they do have pretty good, when you have breakdowns on the MTR, I mean, of course, you do have complaints because large numbers of people are involved, but they do have fairly efficient communication systems for getting the news out fairly quickly. And I well remember also when non-ping 360 was shut down in the past, you used to see notices at MTR stations, but it's not clear why that didn't happen this time, and you had tour groups continuing to go there after it was closed.
Right. But it's also an element of more than just simply a public transport system. It's also tourism aspect of it. And like I said, there are occasions when package tours get stranded, and we have all sorts of disputes involving tourists and breakdown like this. And I would have expected the Tourism Commission to do something even better in terms of coordinating, emergency services and deal with crises like this.
Do you expect that there might be some sanction as a result of this?
It might be a bit premature to say right now. We have obviously to see the full report of what's happened, and judging from that report, and if there is any serious failure in management, of course, one would expect that something might be done afterwards.
Can I just ask you this? The government has ordered a full inspection, but is that a little different than a full investigation?
Depends on how you define inspection, obviously. Inspection might just simply be a sort of mechanical inspecting of what, the mechanism and things like that. But full report obviously would involve more than that.
That's right. Yeah, if you could inspect the machinery, that's one thing, but an investigation would be on total practice, corporate practice.
The management system, what happened on the day, what happened to all the senior management, are they on holidays or what have you.
Okay, well, I guess we'll leave it there then, Mr. Jay. Thanks very much. Always a pleasure to have you on. Paul Jay, a legislator representing the tourism functional constituency. Danny, thanks for coming in again today. This is a Friday. It feels like a Tuesday,
I have to say on the Nong Ping 360, it is, we've been slamming, it is a fantastic ride.
It is a great ride.
It is a fantastic ride. So let's hope they get it fixed so people can actually enjoy it properly without being stranded for hours.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'd want to go up there when it was only 3 degrees, though.
It's really
cold.
hard. I mean, I was up a month or two ago, and it's cold enough just when you're on just the ride's working properly. You can't imagine what it'd be like for 2 hours.
Okay, Backchat. I'm Brian Curtis.